Trading Nick Chubb is not the genius idea that some people really think it is. And this happens when you have, a forward-thinking organization. I think that's good in some ways. I do think it attracts some very odd people, but it's good in some ways, and I think it's good in a lot of ways, but it can be taken too far. It's been proven that football is not baseball. I don't know if you guys know that. That's a different sport. And some of the stuff that worked for baseball does work for football when it comes to Moneyball. Some of that stuff doesn't. Because what football is also a fight. Now, anybody who's watched boxing or anything, yes, there's some of boxing or UFC or MMA that is psychology. And there's some that's skill, right? There's some of this that's a science, and there's some of this that just comes down to fight or flight. Football is equal parts a science, equal parts of fight. What does that mean? Is that some of this stuff can be predicted with algorithms and by making the processes smarter. But you can't go full analytics with football. And I think the Browns even understand this. I think most teams in the NFL understand this. I think the issue is that some fans don't understand this, that you can't go full analytics. Like, you can say what you want about the Browns and them going all in on analytics. They're about as in on analytics as everybody else is on the league, and that's about 60-70%. But there's a good 30% that's people stuff. And to be honest with you, that's some of the stuff where I think the Browns have failed the most, is the people stuff. Right? I've been very critical about their inability to handle the people stuff for football, right? Player management. Why do we have so many disgruntled players over the last few years? That shouldn't happen. These are things that I'm okay, we're not handling people stuff well. And then I hear someone suggest that we should trade Nick Chubb. I mean, must-win season next year, but we should trade Nick Chubb. And that's where I start to lose my mind. Now, I know trust me, I've heard you guys commenting in this comment section, writing out this comment right now. I've heard whatever argument you're going to put in that comment section. You're not going to blow my mind with whatever new thing you type up there to try to change my mind. And you're going to tell me about, we could get $13 million in cap space this year and then 10 the next year. And then we'll save $23 million over the next 2 years. And we might be able to get a second round pick. I'd rather have Nick Chubb. I'd rather have Nick Chubb. And let's really break down a lot of these arguments, because some people are telling me, we could get a second round pick for Nick Chubb. No, you can't. No, you can't. The problem with Nick Chubb is that the value he provides to the team is not going to be equaled in his trade value. There are two positions that make sense to trade off of before their contracts expire. That's quarterback and that's edge rusher, because those guys get a disproportionate amount of trade value. Right? Lamar Jackson, if he hits the open market, you're going to get at least 3 first-round picks for him. Myles Garrett, if he hits the open market, you're going to get at least 2 first-round picks for him. And even then, it don't make sense to trade any of those guys, because if you got one of those guys, there's a reason somebody's willing to trade 3 first-round picks for them, because they're rare, so you probably should just keep them. But yet, we think that Nick Chubb can go for a second-round pick. I don't think that's realistic. You look at all the running back trades in history, the only running backs that's ever gone for a second-round pick, for anything better than a second-round pick, is Christian McCaffrey, and he's half a wide receiver. You could point to Trent Richardson in 2012, but then we're talking about something that happened 10 years ago with the dude who played 1 year in the league. This is a 27-year-old. He's not going to go for a second-round pick. So you're talking about a third or fourth for Nick Chubb? I'd just rather have Nick Chubb. You're talking about saving 10 or 25 or $13 million in 1 year and in the next. That's stupid. Just have Nick Chubb. If you want to win a Super Bowl, the goal isn't to acquire as many decent players as possible. The goal is to have as many great players as possible. Nick Chubb is a great football player. You're not going to get another great football player with however you try to divvy up Nick Chubb's trade value, because you're not going to get that high of a pick. You're not going to get that much cap space. You're not going to get another great football player for the price of one Nick Chubb. And if you're not going to get a great football player in return, why are you giving up a great football player? And some people have talked themselves into this nonsense so far that running backs don't matter, that they think good running backs, don't affect teams' ability to win football games. What? I understand if you think it's not easy, it's not difficult to find decent running backs. That's the argument with running backs don't matter. It's not hard to find decent running backs. As long as you have great quarterback play, your offense should be fine. But having a great running back helps you win games. What are we doing here? This is one of those things where I feel like people have outsmarted themselves to try to feel smart. And when you get to the point to where you're looking at a team in a win-now window and you're too smart to see what's obvious in front of you, which is this team needs to keep as many of its good players as possible for the next couple of years, because that's the window that you're trying to succeed in. And instead, you're trying to galaxy brain, we could get a second-round pick and some cap space for Nick Chubb, and you're thinking too much. You've done too much. You've done too much. You are playing, this is the thing I say about Kevin Stefanski and some of his play calling, you are playing a game of Battleship by yourself. You're only outsmarting yourself. Really, that's all you're doing. You're only outsmarting yourself. You're trying to be Bill Belichick, but you ain't Bill Belichick. Just keep it simple. Have good play. You know how the Philadelphia Eagles got to the Super Bowl? They acquired a lot of good players. Had them. Just cap them. You know what I mean? And then good players got released from teams that thought they were too smart to have good players. And then the Eagles were like, we'll take that good player. Oh, you don't want Darius Slay? We'll take him. You don't want Chauncey Gardner? We'll take him. It's amazing what acquiring good football players and great football players does for your football team. It almost makes it better. Like, how do we forget this? How do we sit through the talent accumulation era of Sashi Brown, watch what that produced, and go, nah, that's good. We should do that. We should do that again. That was actually dope going 0-16. Yeah, I know we're supposed to win now. And I know we told everybody in that locker room that we should win now. And I know we told the coaches that we got to win now and that there's probably going to be consequences if you don't win now this season. But let's trade one of the best players on the team to get a second-round pick. And you ain't even getting no second-round pick, man. It ain't even worth it to get the second-round pick. And that's a fantasy land compensation for him. Just keep him. Just keep great football players. Just keep them. Just keep them. Just keep them. I had somebody tell me that they would rather have a decent edge rusher than Nick Chubb. How do you say that and not realize what you are doing? How do you do it? Like, how do you get to that point and not have the self-awareness to be like, oh, what I said was actually ridiculous? I understand different positions have different value. Trust me. Edge rusher is a very valuable position. It's hard to find really good edge rushers, but a decent edge rusher, that's not that hard to find. A really good running back, very hard to find. We've been trying for 30 years. We got one. It's Nick Chubb. And part of the argument for some people is that the offense is changing, Quincy. It's going to be Deshaun Watson focus. In a Deshaun Watson focus offense, where does Nick Chubb fit in? At running back. That's where Nick Chubb fits in, at running back. At running back, he will run the ball, dog. Like, he's still going to get carries. And like, we forget, in 2019, he had his best season ever. He ran from the gun most that season. Why do we think Nick Chubb is like a one-trick pony now? He's one of the best running backs in football. and we think he can't run for the shotgun. We've seen him do it. What are we doing? What are we doing? Like literally into something that's going to be not even as run focused. Like Freddie Kitchens' offense was less run focused than what Kevin Stefanski's offense is going to be next year, even though it's going to rotate around Deshaun. And still Nick Chubb got his. Was very helpful. What are we doing? What are we doing? We really think that this team, if the Browns can get a Super Bowl within the next 2 years, Nick Chubb isn't going to be on this team? I'm telling you right now, as important as Deshaun Watson is to that, and he's very, very important. He's probably the most important piece. And Myles Garrett's probably number 2 there. Nick Chubb's number 3 in that story. You ain't get to the Super Bowl without somebody like him. Because on this offense, you have one guy right now that is a legit, like, you know, if Sunday was this week, that guy's going to play and he's going to be a dude. That's Nick Chubb. Maybe Deshaun Watson gets back to form and gets to that level again. But that's the one game changer you have right now for sure is Nick Chubb. Why would you trade him? Why would you trade him? What are we doing? Again, this is why I get frustrated with this part of the offseason. And I think as more years go on, as I see more of these galaxy brain strategies just end up looking very doo-doo brain at the end of the day, I just think we get too far away from the point, which is good football teams have great football players. It's okay to be simplistic sometimes. Sometimes what's smart is what's simplistic, right? You don't, when you're doing 1 + 1 and you're trying to tell everybody like all these complicated ways to get to 2, you're not actually being smart. You're just trying to appear smart. What's simple is what works. Good players win football games. Teams with good players win football games. Teams that get rid of good players for the hope of getting some good players who might not be as good as the good player that I just gave up don't win football games because they have less good players. It's okay to be simple about some things, man. It really is. And they're trying to convince yourself that you're going to trade Nick Chubb and become a better team for this year and next year is goofy. It's goofy. I don't care if you think you'll get Orlando Brown Jr., who, by the way, they don't think he's that good in Kansas City. And if you look at the tape, he's not much better than Jedrick Wills. He really isn't. So you're going to have the same complaints with him that you're going to have with Jed. But you're going to pay more money for that. So galaxy brain move. Let's get rid of Nick Chubb to get a slight upgrade over Jed Wills. It's great. It's a great move. You know, I don't know how many times in Browns history do we have to keep doing this until we'll finally get it. Like, I honestly don't. Because we did this in 2011. We could take Julio Jones, but let's get some extra draft picks. Let's spread it out. You know what I mean? Let's be smarter than everybody else. We're not going to take Julio Jones. Why would we want him when we can have 40 Julio Jones with like all these picks we're going to get? Yeah, that worked out. That worked out, right? That was a great trade. 2014, one of the best drafts of all time. Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack in that draft. You could have took Khalil Mack. You traded back. Oh, I'm gonna move back 4 spots out the elite players and get me somebody good and then get a bunch of good players. That worked out, right? 2014 draft, a famous success, right? 2017. You know what I mean? You get Myles Garrett number 1. Okay, you get the 12. You could take Deshaun Watson. Or hear me out, y'all. Hear me out. We could have just took Deshaun Watson, or we can trade back, get a bunch of extra picks, stink for the next, 4 or 5 seasons, and then spend 3 first-round picks to trade for Deshaun Watson anyways. We could just do that. That's so much smarter. It wouldn't be easier if we just signed Deshaun Watson, just drafted him when he was simply there with the pick that we had because of the other trades. No, we got to be too goddamn smart, right? We've missed on franchise player after franchise player after franchise player, and we wonder why we stink. And then we get to Nick Chubb. We finally get a great player, and we're like, let's trade him. We get to Myles Garrett, and let's trade him. We can get draft picks. Why? Why are we like this? Look, if you want to trade Nick Chubb, God bless you. Like, I can't, I'm not even going to argue with you anymore. You know what I mean? We'll let the season roll out, and then you'll probably not think that once football is being played. But come on, man. Why we got to be like this? Why? And don't try to galaxy brain it in the comment section below and try to tell me how trading one of your best players is actually smart, because y'all been selling the Browns fans that garbage for 25 years, well, 22 years, and it's given us garbage football. That ideal of, let's get rid of an opportunity to have a great player and let's go for more decent players has been a strategy that is blown up like acne dynamite in the Browns' face for 22 seasons. 22 of them. 22. But we think it's going to work out because it's the 23rd time? Are we insane? Just keep good players. It took forever for us to get good players. Let's just keep them. And it's not like I'm saying extend Nick Chubb. I'm just saying keep him under his current contract for the next 2 years. His extension is his extension. I don't know what you're going to do with that, but what are we doing? Why are we trying to get rid of a good player before we even got to? It's not the smart idea that we think it is. It really isn't. It's something that has been proven to not work out in practice. And as a Browns fan, we should know. We should know this. But that is my thoughts on that whole thing. Let me know what you think in the comment section below.